Hello everybody. Today I'd like to talk to you about why we use different terminology at the Centre of Excellence in Child Trauma. One of the things that I'd like to begin with is by talking to you about the word placement and why I personally don't use that word, and I encourage lots of other people not to either. And we certainly don't use the word placement in our not-for-profit therapeutic fostering agencies, Safer Fostering Wales and True Fostering England. So I wrote this poem from my book, Therapeutic Parenting, Rhyme and Reason. I am not a placement. I am not a placement. I'm a vulnerable, innocent child, not to be depersonalised, insulted and reviled. I am not a nightmare, a burden or a brat. I didn't ask to be here, so please don't call me that. I am not a respite, short-term, long-term match. I am a little person, a frightened one, in fact. I am not a solo. I'm the eldest child of 3, but due to my behaviours, they granted enhanced fees. I am not a lack, a step down or a bridge, chucked around the system like a second-hand fridge. To live within a family should be my human right, and I should never have to ask, where will I sleep tonight? Children are not placements, they are children. I've had lots of people argue with me over this for many years, and I will never change my mind about that fact. They don't need to live in a placement, they need to live in a home. So we say foster homes. When someone says to me, my child's had 7 placements, I say, do you mean homes? Do you mean 7 different beds in 7 different houses with 7 different lots of rules and 7 different families? Is that what you mean? Because I know what it feels like to wake up in the morning and not know where you are. To remember that you were moved in the dead of night by social workers to somebody's strange house, but you don't know who's downstairs. You don't know what's expected of you. It's absolutely terrifying. A placement is somewhere where we go temporarily. Perhaps if we're training to be, like myself, when I trained to be a therapist 22 years ago, and I did a placement. Some people think that I'm being pedantic or I'm splitting hairs. I want to be very clear here that we must not depersonalise children, and they don't need placements. They need families and they need homes. And I know people say we're not actually talking about the home, we're talking about the action of placing a child somewhere. That is the placement. Still, it is really depersonalising language. It really doesn't need to be said. We can just say, I've found a home for this child. In the same way, we don't say residential unit. I mean, really? You might as well say Batsy Dog's Home. It's awful, awful. Who needs to be in a unit, let alone a residential unit? Just call it a children's home or a home. You know, let's get back to old-fashioned language in this way. This is a child who lives in a home. They may be fostered, but they live in a home. One of the things that foster children hate more than anything else in the world, and I've spoken to thousands, and I was one for many years. And one of the things they hate more than anything in the world is to feel like they're fostered. They just want to be like other kids. And I know they're different, but they want to be treated like other kids. They don't want social workers coming to their school for a lack review. What do they lack? Or a CLAR review. I met a wonderful foster parent, and I won't say her name because she might be a bit embarrassed, but she's amazing. And she said one of her children asked her what a lack was. And she said, lack, loved and cherished. What's a CLAR? Cared for, loved and cherished. Or cherished, loved and accepted. So, yeah, we've got a lack review, loved and cherished review. The other thing that I don't say, and we don't say in our agencies, is respite. Do you know that respite means a break from a difficult and troublesome thing? You may be having respite while the child goes away, but still, do we have to say that? Really? Do we have to class them in that way? I understand this may not be your intention, but I want you to know, after interviewing 478 children, these are the words that they've told me they hate and why they hate them. I worked with a 12-year-old girl who tried to take her own life because she researched the word respite and believed that she was that difficult and troublesome thing. We must remember that our children have a negative view of self, what we call a negative internal working model. They believe they're bad, and you need a break from a bad thing, and that bad thing is me. Or a little 5-year-old boy who thought he was going to be bitten because he thought it was respite. He was going away to be bitten. You know, children from trauma have significant issues with their brains. When you have developmental trauma, you think in a very literal way. And it's very difficult for our children to read between the lines and understand what's really going on here. Not to mention they're developmentally and emotionally much younger than their chronological age. So let's be mindful of those things that we say. Let's be careful. Now, I'm not going to argue the toss on this one, but I call foster parents rather than foster carers. And the reason I do that is because I consider them to be professional parents and co-professionals alongside myself. They are the professionals in the child's life, particularly good ones anyway. And the vast majority of foster parents are fantastic because they've given up their lives to commit themselves to caring for children and being on the receiving end of blame and judgment by the system for doing what they do best, which is taking care of the most broken people in society. And yes, there's good and bad in every walk of life. Every walk of life. But one of the things that I feel is important is that we recognise foster parents for what they do really, really well, which is parenting. And the other reason I don't call you carers, if you're a foster parent, is because carers do shift work. The clock on and the clock off. They'll do a shift, maybe a 10 till 2 or a night shift. You're 24/7 at the coalface. 24/7. You can't ring in on a Monday morning and say, I've got the flu. Please, can you come and pick up Jeremy? Because you've got to keep going, whatever is happening. And so I call you foster parents. The other thing that I feel so strongly about, that every time it's mentioned, I feel like I'm going to blow a gasket. I feel like my brain is going to explode to the top of my head. And if I was really good at videos, I'd do some sort of animation of my brain exploding, but I'm not that good yet. Who knows what the future holds? Is the term family time. I cannot believe about 3 years ago, this new terminology came out that was meant to be user-friendly. I have not got words to tell you the damage that this has done. The amount of foster families that had real strong stability that started to wobble, instability started to creep in. And myself and my wonderful colleague Jane Mitchell, who I co-authored a couple of the books with alongside Sarah Naish, said something's not right here. Something's happening. What is it? What's the change that's happened across the system that's caused this? And I said, I don't know, but we're going to find out. So when I spoke to lots and lots and lots, hundreds and hundreds of foster parents, and to date 94 children who have wobbled, just children that I know of, by the way, there's probably many hundreds more who've wobbled because of this. When we drilled down into it, it was because the term family time had been introduced instead of contact. Now, I want to be clear, I don't like the word contact, it's horrible. When I was in care, they used to call it access. Not very nice. Seeing mum and dad might be better, or seeing your brothers, seeing your sisters. Now, before I say anything else, I am not against children having ongoing relationships with their family of origin. If it is safe to do so being the operative sentence. Many of our children continue to see parents who have been abusive, and we call it family time. Many people say to me, but the child wants to see them, the child wants to see them. The child's too scared to say they don't want to, sometimes. Or the child has put the parent on a pedestal because they're desperate for that parent to become the parent they want them to be. Because our children are egocentric, they blame themselves, they're stuck in shame. They've got a negative internal working model. That's the way they view themselves and how that plays out with their caregivers. Those children believe my parent is going to become the parent I need them to be if I can be the child they need me to be. When a social worker said to me, Your mum and dad loved you, but they couldn't look after you. What I heard was your mum and dad loved you, Sarah, but they couldn't look after you because you're too bad. We've got to think in a trauma-informed way. This is how it feels. So I don't care when the social worker says she's got a great relationship with her dad. Her dad has been to prison for domestic abuse. No, she's fawning. She's desperate to keep her dad on side. Why can we not see this? Because of magical thinking. Because everybody wants to tie trauma up in a pink bow and make it look nice. It stinks. And it's not good. So I want to reiterate, yes, it's good if a child can carry on having relationship with family of origin, if it is safe to do so. So some very interesting, I'm sure very intelligent and well-paid people decided to use the term family time. And so these families started to really wobble because the children started to think, what does this mean? Does this mean I'm going back to my parents or my birth family? Does that terrify me? Possibly. Or does it give me hope for something that's not going to happen? Does it mean I'm no longer a part of my foster family? Does this mean I'm being rejected? That's what most of them felt. You're having family time, which means that is your family, not us. After they've been claimed, they belong and they believe that this is their family. Do you know you can have more than one family? My foster mum was a West Indian woman, and I want you to know I've got two families. I've got a Jamaican family and I've got an English family. And it's been wonderful for me to have more than one family. And most of people that I consider family are just friends. But for me, they're my family. Just research what the word family means. We are putting too much emphasis on birth family being the only family. You can have more than one family. In the same way you can have more than one mum and more than one dad. And so some of the children also thought they were going to have a wonderful time. And then when they went to a blinking contact centre, they realised it wasn't such fun. So I did a piece of work and I created a table. And on that table, on one side of the table, I put the word family time. And that read, fun time together, being yourself, day trips, laughter, connectedness, play, shared meals, belonging, safety and comfort. That's family time. When we have a birth family visit, which is what we call them, and you might think it's the same thing. No, it isn't the same thing. A birth family visit can be triggering of trauma, recreating painful dynamics, trauma bonds, grief, loss, fear, anxiety, regression, a reminder of separation and a deep sense of sadness. That is a birth family visit. Now, can a child have fun during a birth family visit? Yes. Can they enjoy it? Yes, of course they can. But a lot of this other stuff is still happening. And when I get people saying to me, the contact's positive, the family time's positive, I think, according to who, love? According to who? According to you? Because that's what you saw with your eyes? No. Because I want you to know that every time I had to leave my mum, I experienced grief and loss and still feel it now. No, this isn't a Sarah Dillon show and this isn't about me. It's about every kid in care who has to go and see family and say goodbye again. It's painful. Not positive, painful. And if you want to argue with me with this, make sure you've been in care. Make sure your care experience, because otherwise you ain't got a clue. I want you to know we are not against children having ongoing relationships with birth family if it is safe to do so. But I want to get rid of that language, family time. No, it's a birth family visit. And all that requires is one extra word in all your paperwork. And when I get people say, yeah, but the local authority call it placement, and they say respite, and they say carer, and they say family time, and they say this, and I said, I don't give a flying monkeys. You can say, this is what we should be saying. You know, our foster parents will correct social workers and other supporting professionals in a really professional, nice way. I was trying to think of the word because I struggle with it. Because I'm very honest about these things, because I'm passionate about these kids. You're only a child for a short period of time in your life. Let's get it right, please. I'm not a placement. Our kids are not placements. Let's think outside the box. Let's not just be trauma informed, let's be trauma aware. Let's consider what this actually means for the child. And let's consider what it means for those caring for such children.